All right, good evening, everybody. It is the January 17th Murray City Planning Commission. My name is Travis Ney. Up on the dais here tonight, we have Scott Woodbury and Sue Wilson and Phil Markham. And over on my right, we have Lisa Milkevich and Ned Hacker. From staff this evening, Jared Hall, Zach Smallwood, Jim McNulty, and Bryant Farnsworth are here. We have a very, very large agenda this evening. I asked that if you have cell phones, that you please silence your cell phone. If you need to take phone calls, please take phone calls out in the hallway away from the doors. If you are here to speak to an issue this evening, when we open that item up for public comment and you'd like to speak to it, we ask that you come up. We'll have you state your name and address. We'll give you 3 minutes if you're speaking as an individual. If you're representing a group of individuals, we'll give you 5 minutes. And that will be the only time that we will actually allow you comment on that item. So once we close public comment is closed for that item. Item number 1 this evening is approval of the minutes from the January 3rd, 2019 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
Other than the minor text changes in the pre-meeting, any additional changes?
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the Thursday, January 3rd, 2019 Planning and Zoning meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury
Second.
and a second by Mrs. Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 2, conflicts of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with an item on the agenda this evening?
No.
No.
No. Okay. There are no items, or there are no findings of fact for item number 3, so we will skip that and we'll move to item number 4. Item number 4 is American Tower seeking a conditional use and certificate of appropriateness for construction of a new wireless communication facility in the MCCD zone at the property address 4850 South Box Elder Street. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. So as you mentioned, this is a 2-part item, conditional use permit and a certificate of appropriateness. For the sake of folks in the audience that might not be aware of how this works, in this zone, the MCCD zone, all new construction requires a review by the DRC, a Development Review Committee for the MCCD zone, and the Planning Commission for what's called a certificate of appropriateness. And then in addition, a relocation for a cell tower like this requires a conditional use permit. So there are 2 parts to your public review tonight. This particular tower is being located on the property at 4850 South Box Elder Street. That is the large piece that you see in the center there. The colors are all wrong, sorry, but anyway, all the color around that's gray that you can see is actually the MCCD zone. This property is also zoned MCCD, and as we said, it requires that conditional use permit review. The only cell towers that are allowed in the MCCD zone are allowed if there are relocation of an existing tower. We had exactly 1 tower in the MCCD zone, and this is the one being relocated from nearby to this spot at 4850 South. This, if you remember, is the location of the new fire station that will be going in. Apparently when we uploaded this slideshow, all the colors got messed up, so apologize. But anyway, this is the location of the new fire station. And the cell tower will be locating right about this area. We can show that a little better in the next slides. It will have a gravel access road from Box Elder going back to a 50 by 50 area where there'll be some ground equipment, and then the tower. The tower itself is 100 feet right now, and the replacement tower will be 100 feet as well. The tower will be located right in here. This is the area where it would be located, and the ground equipment as well, and then this is that access coming from Box Elder Street. As we said, that's going to be in that kind of mid portion of the property the city owns on Box Elder where the fire station is going up. A portion that's going to be sold for future development, and this will sit right between those 2 new buildings. So it's easier to see in this slide here. So we're talking about a relocation of the tower to about this location. The existing tower is right here. If you're from that area, you probably have seen it in back of Frankie and Johnny's, the building that was recently demolished there. We are, and this is 4800 South, just so you can tell where we're looking at, and Box Elder here. So this is the location of the new fire station and the new tower. The relocation site's right about there. Again, this is just a better depiction of that site plan. It'd be gated. There'll be a fence put up, chain link fence right now. When the new development comes, that fence would likely be replaced with a precast masonry wall, so it'll be a little bit nicer facility at that point when the new development comes. But in the meantime, they have to at least put in that gravel access and the chain link fence to secure the site. The tower, as we said, is a monopole tower. It is 100 feet tall, 2 arrays on it. This is just a shot of the existing tower looking across 4800 South, and this is the site where it would be located on Box Elder, near the parking lot there. Staff is recommending approval. We've gone through the code requirements for this in the MCCD zone. We do feel like it meets those, and we're recommending that with these 6 conditions, it will meet all of our requirements and should be approved for a conditional use permit and a certificate of appropriateness. The conditions that we've listed for the certificate of appropriateness and for the conditional use are the same, just so you're aware. Any questions for staff?
Questions? The proposed fence, 6 foot, 8 foot?
The proposed fence 8 feet.
8 feet, okay.
Well, no, the temporary.
Oh, the temporary, sorry.
yeah, the
6
temporary,
feet.
sorry.
The future one would likely be
Okay.
8 foot masonry. Sorry,
Okay.
I get confused.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
If we could have the applicant come up, please. Good evening. Just have you state your name and address for the record.
My name's Eric Shaw. I'm with Powder River Development out of Eagle, Idaho.
Have you had an opportunity to review the 6 conditions for the certificate of appropriateness?
I have.
And you'll be able to comply with the 6 conditions for the certificate of appropriateness?
I forward that on to American Tower, and they should have no problem with those.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the same 6 conditions for the conditional use permit?
Indeed.
You'll be able to comply with those as well?
Sure.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
Nope.
Any questions for the applicant?
Pretty simple.
Okay, thank you. We'll have you take a seat. This will be opened up for public comment, and we will open up public comment for both the certificate of appropriateness and for the conditional use permit. Anyone like to speak to it? Good evening, Mr. Barney. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
My name is Dylan Barney, as some of you know and don't know. I live at 4902 Box Elder Street, and if you'd bring up the overhead view of the map, if you go just south of the site where you want to put the tower, there's a big white building. See where the red dot is? Just below that? That's where I live, and that's where I own property. And one of my concerns is what the effect on, I realize there's a cell phone tower, but what the effect on cell phone customers living in that area is going to be, and over-the-air television and radio reception. I realize there's certain FCC requirements that have to be met in order for a tower to be put in like that. I've been in contact with a fellow by the name of Brooke, I think is Zirkus, a senior specialist with safety compliance with American Towers, and I've gotten some limited response back from him. But my big concern is I want to get a little bit more response so that I can know what kind of a corporate neighbor I'm going to have with American Towers. Other than that, I have no real objections. I just would just as soon not have a big tower like that in my side yard, but there's not much I can do about it at this particular point in time. I thank you for your time, and I hope to hear from somebody from American Towers and the people putting in the tower. And I'd also like to see what it's going to look like, not just a line drawing, but more of a pictorial drawing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared, could you maybe bring up the existing tower? Mr. Barney, I think you'll find that it will look very similar to what you see there, only there will be 2 arrays instead of the 3rd array at the bottom that you see there. Just 2 arrays, yes. Anyone else like to speak to this issue? Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission. My name is Corey Solon with Think Architecture. I'm the architect actually working on the proposed development that would be associated with this cell tower relocation. We are aware of the cell tower relocation, and what we would like to do is, again, have some opportunity to meet with the applicant or talk with the applicant to discuss some of the more unique challenges that might be associated with our proposed development that's next door to it, and get a little bit more information on how that might impact the property that my client is currently looking at purchasing in that same area. So, other than that, we were aware of the tower. We don't really have any objection to it, but it's just we would like to have the opportunity to discuss it with them a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back up here.
The staff.
Bring the applicant back up to.
Yeah, maybe we would bring the applicant back up for just a moment and have you address Mr. Barney's comments and questions, perhaps, as well as Think Architecture. So as far as how will it impact television signal, cell phone signal?
Yeah, typically these sorts of signals, I mean, there's all sorts of interference, you're correct, with the FAA, so they have to get licensed for certain frequencies that and they are not allowed to interfere with other sorts of frequencies that might be impacted. So that's not really a concern. As far as coverage for that area, it'll be shifted a little bit more, closer to you. I'm not 100% certain which providers are on that array, but those will definitely get a little bit better coverage in that direction. But it's so close, it's not going to be much different than what it is currently.
And then as far as Think Architecture, have you had any contact with Think Architecture at this point? Mr. McNulty, you want to answer?
If
Yep.
you would like to, go ahead, but I spoke to Carla today.
Oh, okay.
Mr. McNulty?
Thank you. I've had a chance to speak with Carla Hanna with American Towers, and Corey as well. And so they're aware of what's proposed as far as the tower, future fencing along the west property line to enhance the potential office building that he'll be designing and occupying, and then the distance from the proposed building to the tower being approximately 80 feet from the closest point. So there is some conversation going back and forth, and we'll help mediate that.
And you'll continue to
We'll
facilitate that?
continue to facilitate
Okay.
and mediate that, so.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
That's all I have.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
All right, back up here for discussion and/or a motion. We would start with the certificate of appropriateness if there's a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make motion that the Planning Commission approve a request for a certificate of appropriateness with the following 6 conditions.
Okay, I
Second.
have a motion by Mr. Hacker and a second by Mr. Woodbury to approve the conditional or the request for a certificate of appropriateness at the property address 4850 South Box Elder Street, subject to conditions 1 through 6. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich,
Yes.
Mr. Nay.
Yes. Motion carries for the certificate of appropriateness. I will entertain a motion now for the conditional use permit.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve a conditional use permit allowing the relocation of existing wireless communication facility onto the property located at 4850 South Box Elder Street in the MCCD 9 zone, subject to the 6 discussed conditions.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Milkevich to approve a conditional use allowing the relocation of existing wireless communication facility on the property located at 4850 South Box Elder Street in the MCCD zone, subject to conditions 1 through 6. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mrs. Wilson. Call for a vote, please.
Ms. Milkevich,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Nay.
Yes, and that motion carries. Item number 5 on the agenda this evening is Fizz of Murray seeking a certificate of appropriateness for a major altercation and a conditional use permit. Alteration. What did I say?
Altercation.
Oh, you wait. It's gonna get intense here. For a major alteration and a conditional use permit for a drive-through restaurant in the MCCD zone at the property address 5055 South State Street. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. So this is the same kind of format as the previous item. There is a certificate of appropriateness and a conditional use required. The certificate of appropriateness in this case is not for a new structure, but for what we call a major alteration of the existing building. So they're actually not going to be adding to the footprint. We'll get to that in just a moment. And then the conditional use permit portion is because the Fizz restaurants, as many of you are aware, it's a drinks, sodas, cookies, that kind of thing, and they function 80+% of their business comes through a drive-through. Drive-through restaurants are allowed in the MCCD zone, but the drive-through portion has to have a conditional use permit review and approval. So that's the reason for the 2 portions. The property, again, we're going to have the color of, this is the way it goes when you go from Microsoft to Apple sometimes. So,
It was really good earlier.
yep. So when we upload it and then translate it through the Apple TV box, we sometimes lose the color. So this is MCCD zoning, all that you see grayed around it, and then the black properties in the middle are the 2 that are impacted by the application on the Ivy Lane Pediatrics building, which is right here. And then to get the drive-through to work, they're actually going to be leasing a portion of the back of the insurance office property right here to get to it. Previously, they had used an unofficial access through the school district property. That's not going to be available anymore, so they've worked with the property owner here next door to procure that. So we'll look at that in the site plans in a moment. This is attempting to show you that there's some zoning there that's not going to work. So the existing building, if any of you are familiar with it, this is the Ivy Lane Pediatrics building on State Street and the insurance office, and the way they sit currently, the parking layout, et cetera. And just to give you a kind of a general big overall idea of the change to the site. There's some changes to the building as well, but this is the site change. You have an entering drive access to get to the menu board and the pickup window, and then out to State Street, and then an entrance for the parking that needs to be provided back here for the building as well. Now, we did the parking counts, and those are all in your reports. The parking requirements in the MCCD zone are fairly low. Fits well because we expect a lot of pedestrian traffic eventually in this zoning. It fits well for the Fizz because a lot of the traffic is coming to the drive-through, not parking and going in, but that still needs to be available, and especially employees, et cetera. So we're going to be adding a handicap accessible stall here, ADA accessible, and there's a route to the front door there that way as well, and we'll get to some of those floor plans in just a moment as well. But there's still plenty of parking left over for the insurance office and the requirements that it has, and then to serve the Fizz building as well. This is the overall site plan. So again, there's a grade change that we talked about in the report here. They'll be driving up. Here there's some retaining walls in this area. We'll be coming up over those. The engineer's looking at that carefully to make sure the drainage isn't impacted too much. And those conditions are all contained in your reports as well, but just to make you aware of that. Again, this ADA accessible stall needs to be van accessible, so we have a space here that is being reviewed currently to make sure that's compliant. And then the accessible route to the front is right there. This shows you as well some tables inside. Again, there's not as much use on the interior of the building, but there is some capacity for that, so they'll be making some modifications to the inside of this building. We can show you that in the next slide. So the upper picture is the demolition. This is what's there right now. Those walls will be removed and be replaced with a very simple kind of a format. You have some tables out front and a service counter, the drive-through window in this area, access to that, some food prep areas, restrooms, and storage. It's a very simple, pretty small building. No changes to the exterior. We're not adding on to the outside of the building, but we are changing the facade a bit. So these are the architectural elevations, just to show you quickly. Projecting sign, that's encouraged in our zoning. We don't allow, they do have a component on that it's not allowed. We've already had a discussion about that. The exposed neon's not allowed in this zone, but the projection of it is good. This is a cutaway to show you kind of the interior, so you can see that dining area and then the back areas. The exterior of the building is going to be faced with, it's stucco. That the kind of odd paint job that's there right now will be covered up. It's kind of an off-white cream for the stucco. There's an indent band allowed here that gives you kind of a shadow relief. We've asked them to put a cap on it that gives it a little better look finish at the top. And then the stone at the bottom. The MCCD zone requires that all new buildings, and in this case a remodel, meet the ground with some sort of base element that is masonry, cement. It can be smooth, it can be brick, it can be something stone. We just like that look here. That's being provided. These are the other elevations. You're looking at the State Street frontage right here. All the glass that's there is currently clear, and that's what we like in the MCCD zone, so you can see what's going on in the building. It creates a better street vibrancy there. And then again, that same treatment all the way around the building. It's right out on the street, so we don't actually have room to do different improvements, but it's kind of approaching the street the way we like. It's not got a front setback of any kind really, other than what's provided for that ramp to come up into the building. This is the north elevation, so as you're coming down State Street from the north, you'd see this side, and this is that ADA accessible route to the front door here. These are renderings of the State Street frontage. So this is the existing Ivy Lane building. Again, we're going to be taking off that awning and replacing it with these suspended awnings like this and the projecting sign. That glass stays. It's working. It's what we actually require, and you can see kind of the stone element there. Just a rendering of the north side as well. You can see that ramp up to the front door to make that all accessible, and the existing right here. This is the landscaping plan. Again, we don't have any areas out in the front to do landscaping that's not already there. We have some planters, but that front landscaping is in just planters there. And then the rear, where we're making some site changes, we have a compliant landscaping plan that's been proposed and turned in. We've been over that, and it does meet our requirements, so we're very pleased about that. We are recommending approval for the certificate of appropriateness and the conditional use permit with these conditions. Some of them are engineering related to make sure that the drainage is appropriate. Right now, everything's draining to the street. That doesn't really work. There's going to need to be some changes to that. They're working on that with our engineer right now. So you're going to see that in there. And then we have some other just basic application or basic conditions as well to make sure that there's a power pole that it looks like it's not going to be the way we were concerned about that at the time we wrote the report, but some other things like that. Same conditions are for both the conditional use permit and the certificate of appropriateness. You have any questions for staff at this time?
Questions for
I
Mr.
have a
Hall?
question, Jared.
Sure.
So in the existing configuration, it's not food service.
Right.
So I don't think they have a dumpster there today.
Right.
Can you show us on the diagram where a dumpster is?
Yes.
And what kind of fencing goes around it?
There's actually, and I didn't include the, we do have a detail of the fencing around the dumpster. There's a solid fence and enclosure for it that's been proposed. It's just solid vinyl. This is the dumpster's right there
In the corner.
in the corner.
Yep.
So we have access to that too through the parking lot. That was kind of a concern. And you're right, we didn't have a dumpster on that site. We need one for food service, so
Thank you.
thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Jared, is there any statistical data available to predict the amount of traffic something like this generates?
There is yes and no. There are some statistical data available, and they provided that to our engineer for him to be comfortable with the stacking
Okay.
distance. So
That-
we can probably stay on the landscaping plan to look at that. It's a concern.
Well, my biggest concern was just if there was some data, and, you know, the thing that carries weight with me is the engineer's recommendation, and we obviously have that. That's why we don't rely on my personal opinion on this.
Right.
We've got professionals with data that
Right.
they can back up their decisions on, so that was
We had them-
primarily
We had them pull
what I was
observed numbers
concerned
for
with.
stacking from their other locations and provide that to trade,
Okay.
so we could get a number we felt comfortable with. And this, and that's part of the reason we have this whole situation here, to
Right.
get up that ramp, and we can provide stacking for 8 or 9 cars very easily. That's what we wanted to see.
Okay.
On that same topic, when we recommend space for parking, do we recommend where the window is on that parking strip and where the ordering board is?
We actually don't recommend the spot, but we're comfortable with where they're placing it, because that provides you, so the ordering board, I'll go back to this site plan here. The ordering board
Okay.
is right here.
right there.
So that gives you enough room to stack a couple of people to order and then get them through the process of picking up their stuff. And we left a little stacking here so that people can make that ride out only onto State Street. Felt like that was important. So we put the order board a little back further than you would expect,
You'd be able to get at least 2 cars at the exit, correct?
in case there's a wait to get out
Through,
on
yeah.
the State Street and on that ride out only.
Traffic.
Now, Jared, what happens if we find that the consistent demand for this business is overwhelming the layout?
Right. So we have a business license process, and one of their conditions is to get a business license. And one of the conditions is that no stacking onto Myrtle is allowed. So if the cars are consistently stacking back to Myrtle, we'll have to look at their business license and not renew that if that's the case. We don't anticipate a problem, having observed the others, but that is the condition of the city engineer, that no stacking should happen onto Myrtle. That would have to happen consistently to create a problem for us. If that were to be the case, we would address it through their business license
How often is that renewed?
every year.
Can I,
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
it's not a parking question.
Well, that's fine. Mine isn't either.
Okay. So then,
This is the
lighting,
altercation part.
This is the altercation. Here it comes.
And that was it. That was pretty intense.
done with that. Lighting in the MCCD's area, I think we have some specific requirements on
do.
parking lighting and front of the building lighting. We haven't discussed that.
Yeah, most of the parking lot light, we have one light shown. I'm gonna miss it here. We have a light that's existing right there. And there's no parking lot lighting proposed for this particular use. And none's really needed. Smaller parking lots, we don't typically require it. They'll probably be building wall pack lights mounted outside the doors, et cetera. And there's no lighting actually in front of these units either. So we don't have a lighting section in this report for that reason.
Nothing to preclude them from putting lighting out on the front facade if they
If
want.
they wanted to do that, they could do that.
It's just downward directed is the biggest.
Downward directed, and we have a certain light that we make everybody put in. So if they wanted to do it, we have these fluted lights that we use in the MCCD, and we could work with the power department to put that out there. So far, that's not been part of the proposal.
Jared,
Yeah.
just more of a question. I know you showed the landscaping plan. We talked about the dumpster. We often put those as conditions. Why did we not put those as conditions on this?
For the landscaping plan?
Yeah, we usually say, must provide the landscaping plan, because then they know what's on the condition, they agree to
Right.
that. So even though they're showing a landscaping plan, why didn't we put it on as a condition this time?
So this is the altercation part, actually.
Okay.
Because we could
Nice.
have. I didn't put them on in that condition, but that we could very easily have done.
Well, we like to be consistent.
It's a matter of consistency.
It's a matter of consistency. We like to, we'll have another one here later.
So I would
that
just
we put
recommend that you add them then.
landscape plan and then that we have the dumpster, screened.
That's
So-
perfect.
Okay, so that'd be
Those
on
two additional conditions.
the CUP.
Any additional
Well, it's on
questions?
both of them.
Yeah,
Right.
that's perfect. Just add it to
Because
it.
they're the same conditions.
Any additional questions for Mr. Hall?
That wasn't much of an altercation either.
Nah, that's as bad as it gets.
We still have time.
We're not done. Okay, if we could have the applicant come up. And again, just state your name and address, please.
My name is Shane Brands, address 6853 Valley Maple Drive in West Jordan.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the 9 proposed conditions as well as understand the discussion between the landscaping plan and screening of the dumpster?
We have.
You'd be able to comply with those conditions.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Any additional information you'd like to add to this presentation?
We would just appreciate no altercations.
Okay. Questions for the applicant?
So I know Jared talked about the traffic a little bit when Commissioner Markham asked about that. How many of these have you done before, these other Fizz-type businesses, and have you experienced backup? I mean, I know that the engineer's comfortable with that, but just, have you done other Fizz businesses as well?
No, I've owned multiple businesses, but this is the first
Okay.
drive-through business. We are relying purely on data that other Fizz locations that they're providing to us based on demographics.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen them more anecdotally, that you go to get your beverage and you're parked halfway out in the turn lane or wherever. So, but if the engineer's comfortable with it, the reason I bring it up is just more, I would really encourage you guys to self-police. If you're seeing it, try to be proactive on that rather than just let people complain, look at it and make adjustments and talk to the city engineer if it looks like that you are getting some backups.
Well, we do hope that it is a problem, so that we
Well,
can,
yeah,
so that we can fix it
certainly.
as it comes up.
Another altercation.
yeah.
In the
We hope that's not the altercation, so.
in the data that you've acquired, typically from the time someone places an order to the time you're able to fill that order and have them leave the premise, how long does that typically
It's
take?
193 seconds is Burger King, 90 seconds or less is Fizz currently right now, and that's just based on average data right now. We anticipate through our projections 400 transactions a day is kind of an average of where we want to be. Based on that number, that gives us about 25 customers per hour and 38 minutes. So we definitely feel like we've got a lot of room to grow even with that model.
Are you aware of the fact that Intermountain Healthcare does not allow you to have sugar beverages? Just throwing that out there. It's
It may have
Blank
come
cups.
up
once or twice. Okay, yeah.
in our decisions to do this.
You'll need some plain brown paper
Plain.
bags for the Intermountain employees.
It is contraband on site. Yeah.
I'll be done. No remediation.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
No.
All right, thank you. We will open this up for public comment, so if anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. Good evening.
Hi, Gordon Seibert. I own Jysco Properties, the building directly south of this and north of the project we're talking about.
Okay.
I had my retail business in my building for 10 years, and my experience was this. Even though the building, or the business that was there before was not a traffic-y type of business, when they had employee meetings, because the entrance to their building was on Myrtle, a building south of there, it's obscure, so they would inevitably go past this location, pull into my parking.
Altercation.
Pull into my parking lot, take up my parking spaces, and then walk across my grass down to that building, and vice versa. It was not a frequent problem, but with this type of business, I see it being a constant problem, as well as the amount of smoke and noise. I sold my business, so I'm no longer there, but the person who bought my business is there, and it's a concern of mine for my tenants. So, I mean, I don't want to cause any problems, but I see it as a real problem because my parking lot is going to be impacted by this, and my grass and landscaping is going to be impacted because of my 10 years of experience having been there. what I'd like to see, at the least, is a fence. Perhaps a vinyl fence across our property line. This drive-through is 8 to 10 feet from my parking spaces. And they just walk down into the building, and this is going, I was thinking it was strictly drive-through, but now I know it's, you can go in and sit down in there and sit outside. That makes it even more impactful. That's what I would suggest, because I know it's going to be a problem for my tenants.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment and bring it back up here for discussion.
Can we bring up Jared, can you bring up the aerial so I can see where the last gentleman is referring to?
Not that aerial.
That's fine.
Does this work? So we're talking about the property immediately to the north.
Okay. So they fly by coming from the south on State Street.
If I understood correctly, yeah, they come up from State Street and go past where they would need to turn into Myrtle and get their parking lot in.
Right, and then they park
in
up
here and
there.
walk down in.
Yeah, because they're not going to be able to enter into the Fizz building off State Street, right?
Right, well, the entrance would be from Myrtle, that's right.
Right, the entrance is just from Myrtle, so if they go by, then, okay.
Can I draw from your extensive experience with these types of businesses
Sure.
and tell me some of the problems/solutions that they've come up with? Perhaps there is a swig on 9th East that has a neighbor that has issues with.
Yeah. So in that case, for example, we adjusted the placement of the ordering window, tried to maximize the space for stacking the cars. Not to a lot of success or avail, but we did try that. We didn't have, and we have not seen foot traffic, a lot of people parking, and the neighboring property owners posted signs, no parking,
They
go
did
away,
post signs.
etc. for their customers only. That's an easy solution.
Do you continue to get complaints?
No, not anymore.
Not from the property owner, Jason?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Because the problem hasn't changed.
No.
I mean, it's people just get used to it.
True. But
Does it
like
come
I
up
said,
in business license discussion?
You know, mostly here actually. Mostly with you all.
Okay.
But,
Or
no,
they-
that's in some cases, yeah, it comes up, but it's been largely dealt with through the replacing or the adjusting of those windows and how they operate, and then the posting of the signs, and people get used to that and stop parking at the 7-Eleven coming in. And then two, as the popularity, when it's new, there's a kind of a crush for it. And as that kind of levels out, things have been normal. And 85–90% of the business of these places, although there is a front area and you can sit down, is through that drive-through. So I don't know how to address it other than that.
So there isn't currently a fence on that property line now,
Not currently.
but nothing would preclude either property owner from installing one.
Correct. You could put a fence there easily enough. We didn't feel that was necessary as a condition of approval, and although I want to be sensitive to the concerns of the neighboring property owner, the traffic to these sites is mostly through the vehicles. I don't think you're going to see that as a constant problem. I just don't. And there aren't employee meetings like that. The pediatrics clinic was probably a different kind of an animal where you probably had employees parking for a while and needing to be there. You're not going to have that with this restaurant. Also, the smoke and noise issue, I should make a note. These are not cooking facilities. These are very, very simple food prep facilities. Most of the cooking happens somewhere else and it's brought in. I should say, too, we asked them to bring a materials board, and I didn't have them show it to you, and they went to some trouble to create it, so can I have them hold that up and show it?
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, we'd
Thank
like
you.
to see it. And then, Mr. McNulty, I know you had something you wanted to say as well.
So these are the materials we're talking about, and I'll let
bring
you kind of
samples?
address. Okay.
Hi, my name's David Clayton. I'm the architect for Mr. Brands. And so we were asked to present a material board along with it. So here's some of the color swatches that we have. This is the color of the stucco finish on the main portion of the building. The accent trim in stucco is going to be this darker gray, and then this is the color of that will be painting the storefront and also those canopies over the entrances. And this is a photographic image of what the stone pattern would look like, and
color
also,
as well.
Yes,
Okay.
and I have the actual physical sample from Harris Stone for that. So
Perfect.
if you'd like to pass it around. Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? No, sorry.
Anybody else for staff? Mr. McNulty?
Just briefly, I think just looking at, with some experience with facilities like these and uses next to each other, I think we could let them do some signage, perhaps some signage to start. And if we see it being a problem, then maybe we can look at a waist-high fence or something like that. But just to expect this applicant to build a fence in between it when it's an ongoing problem that's existed for quite some time,
Right.
I think would be a little bit much at this point. So if if you'd like to add a condition about some signage, or, if that doesn't work, looking at some other things, or just letting staff do it, I think that would be the best way to solve this for now. So.
I think that's a staff matter at this time. I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but I think that might be the way I would prefer to try and handle it at first.
I agree.
Great.
I do have to take just a moment for my Swaney soapbox. I am going to just say in general that I think in the MCCD zone, I'm unhappy with drive up. I was unhappy with the bank. I'm unhappy with restaurants. I think that really we should be forcing walkability in these areas as much as possible. I realize that the policy decision of the city does not support what I'm saying, but I still think it's something moving forward that we should consider. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney.
Well,
Motion.
motion?
How do you want to add those two
I've
conditions?
got them written down.
So we'll be adding condition 10
And 11.
and 11.
Do you want me to?
Did we open?
Okay.
Did we open up to the public?
I'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the requested certificate of appropriateness for the major alteration of the property located at 5055 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 9 and adding conditions 10 and 11. Condition 10 would be that there is an appropriate dumpster enclosure that will be required. Condition number 11 is that the proposed landscape plan will be implemented.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Wilson to approve the certificate of appropriateness for a major alteration of the property located at 5055 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 9, with the additions of condition number 10, discussing the screening of the trash bin, and number 11, discussing the
Landscape plan.
landscape plan as read into the record by Mrs. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a second by Mrs. Milkevich. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. The certificate of appropriateness is approved. For the conditional use permit, do we have to add those 9 conditions, or those 2 conditions again,
Yeah.
just to be safe?
do.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow drive-through services for the proposed Fizz restaurant on the property located at, what's my address there? I forgot. 5005 South State Street.
5055.
5055 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 9 with the additions of 10 and 11 relative to the landscape plan and the dumpster enclosure.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Sorry,
Woodbury.
Woodbury.
You're okay.
Just
Man, you need a
blank.
caffeinated beverage.
I know. To approve a conditional use permit to allow drive-through services for the proposed Fizz restaurant at the property located at 5055 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 9 with the additions of conditions 10 and 11 pertaining to the screened trash facility and the landscaping plan. I have a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Hacker. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Good luck with your business. Item number 6 this evening is Jenkins seeking a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6231 South Fashion Boulevard. Is that applicant here this evening? We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
I
I don't have it. I think Jim still has it.
So this is an application for an accessory dwelling unit at the property that you'd mentioned above. This is located off Fashion Boulevard, off of a private road there. It is in the R18 zone, which allows for accessory dwelling units in single-family homes, as long as it meets, subject to a conditional use permit and review. This is a around 5,800 square foot home, and they're proposing a 997 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which is less than the 1,000 that we require or that is allowed. That equals about 17% of the total of the home, which, as you guys know, 40% is the max that we allow. So well under that. They are proposing a walkout basement. In this area. It's a constant problem with me in this little red dot thing, but you can see it at the top of the screen. Highlighted in red is the proposed unit. In our regulations, we require, or we only allow 2 bedrooms, so I wanted to address the third room in there. That is being proposed as an office area. The applicant states that this is going to be used for her parents, and she wanted to have a craft room. So we initially this had a closet involved in it as well, and we had them remove that and put in kind of a glass door instead of a solid door, such that it looks more like an office instead of a bedroom. So that is one of the requirements there. Another part is, as part of the demolition plan, they are removing one of the garages. There are 2 single-car garages attached to the home. They are removing one of those because it actually slopes down into the basement, and you can actually park a car in the basement.
Nice.
So they are removing that so that during the remodel. So that removes a parking space. So I've actually required them to, we've talked it out, and they are required to take the shed down that's located where kind of the bottom 2 parking spaces are labeled. And they're going to be putting 4 parking spaces there just to make sure that they have all the off-street parking requirements that are mandated. A lot of this is interior remodel. She's going through and remodeling the entire house top to bottom, and that's part of the ADU process. That was kind of what she was trying to do there. Here you can see a little bit where they are. You can see that garage up on the top screen or the top photo. That's the one that's existing, and then in the photos here, you can actually see the second car garage there that's going to be removed. And then, so those are just a few photos that I have of the property. We are recommending approval subject to these 10 conditions. Any questions for me?
Questions for staff?
These conditions are all just the standard conditions that we typically see for an accessory dwelling unit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
this is even though it's a really large home and a pretty large unit, it's a pretty standard accessory dwelling unit when you come right down to it.
Okay. And staff review didn't indicate any special conditions needed to apply or anything?
No. I mean, just when they come in for the building permit, I am going to make sure that those parking stalls are in there. That's just to make sure that we have the required 4 off-street parking stalls that are required in the ordinance. So it wouldn't necessarily need to have a condition for those.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. If we could have the applicant come up. Good evening. Have you just state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Melanie Jenkins, and I live at 6231 South Fashion Boulevard.
Right. Have you had an opportunity to review the 10 conditions?
Yes, we did, and I'm just having my guys over there kind of help me out with everything. They're kind of my architects and my project managers, and just whatever they give us, they're going to make sure that they meet all requirements, so everything is up to code and good.
Okay. Do you have anything that you'd like to add in the presentation?
No, it's good. I just wanted to say I wasn't the one that actually built this house originally. We just bought it recently, and we're just trying to remodel it into something a little bit more usable space. And yeah, put my parents down there because they're about 80 right now. So that would be nice. I
Okay.
appreciate
Any
it.
questions for the applicant?
One question. You currently reside in the home then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you.
right, thank you.
We will open this up for public comment. So if anyone would like to speak to this issue, time's yours. Hi.
My name's Roger Janes. I live at 6229 South. It's right next door.
Okay.
And they have the wrong address on that. It's not 6231, it's 6229 rear. The vacant lot next to us is 6231.
Okay.
So
We'll have staff talk about that one here.
oh, how they got that address on there. And my concern is the public road that goes in between there is my property. And they've been using that constantly to park on a lot. And I'm just concerned about having more cars there because they have more cars than they have room to park now. And with the address being the same as ours, we've had a lot of problems with that also. Because theirs is 6229 South rear. And we've had a lot of things with, one time they had the fire department come out and they don't ever use the rear. So they always come to our house. And it was at midnight and we had the fire department banging on our doors to answer the call, and it was the wrong house, and scared my wife half to death because I was asleep and she was up. And I was just concerned about the extra cars and stuff for that property.
Okay.
Because they've more or less taken over my property at the end now. Because our roadway goes all the way to past all of them. So,
Okay.
you know, yeah.
Well, actually, we'll have you roll over towards the or does this mic work? We're recording everything for public so that they can take minutes on the
And
meeting. So I
broadcast.
do need it in a microphone. Yeah, we'll help you out here. We'll have you state your address as well, please.
Yes, it's 6229 South Fashion Boulevard. And
Name, I'm sorry.
Melanie Jenkins
Thank you.
is, she's going by Simmons and using our address, but it's supposed to be using rear. And we're getting UPS coming to our house all the time and trying to send them there, and they're complaining, well, they need a new address. I said, well, all they need to do is put rear on it, but they refuse to do that because that's tacky. And, well, we've had problems with a lot. Just recently, we had 7-Eleven come to make a delivery at my house, and as you can see, I don't get around. And so I have to wake up my husband, who's trying to nap whenever he can because he's working night shifts sometimes. And anyway, it's just been a problem to have the same address. So if they move more people there, they're going to have a new address or something. And Murray City said there is no other addresses they can use. And Jenkins is further back, one house is her parents, and she's talking about making her parents having the den area up there in that house. They do have a house back there. So it's her mother-in-law that's making the cement under something. I don't understand. They already have many families living in the houses there. And I don't see how they can put in more without a different address, because it is already a big problem. Is that all we have? The parking, because they do have cars going back and forth. They have husbands and wives and kids that are old enough to drive, so there is a lot of cars and not that many places for any more parking to come there. We've asked them to stay. There is that wood fence there that we've asked them to keep back that far because they usually are parking right outside my window, and I like to know who's parked out there because I've had many cars there and have to call the police, and there have been people that have dropped off their cars and just left, and and just left them there for the police. Yeah, the stolen cars. And so we've had problems with that. And because it is a dead end there, so they think that they can just dump their car there.
Okay.
And I do sit there and can see everything. That's why I like to know who's coming and going. And
Yeah, your 3 minutes are up, so we're going to move on to the next comment. Anyone else?
It's 3 minutes.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dolores Garcia, and we are having the same problems with these people. My daughter lives right next door to you, and she's handicapped, and she's handicapped, and she has had a lot of people from that house jump over her fence, go through her yard, open the gate, gone through the yard, and she can't do a thing about it. And now I'm worried about and my mom's house is right next to my daughter's house at 304 East, 6215 South. So I'm speaking for both houses. I own my mom's house now. And we also are worried about the extension of that house. It's going to be, right in front of my daughter's backyard. I don't know how high the windows are going to be. They're going to be overlooking my daughter's backyard.
So as a clarification, they're not actually extending the house. This is all taking place inside of the existing building. So they're not.
It is not getting
in
bigger?
the basement of the building. Yeah. So they're not adding on to the home. They're remodeling the interior of the home.
Okay, but I still don't understand how many bedrooms, how many people are in that house, and it should be limited, I suppose, because I don't think I could have that many people in one house, and we do get mail, we get from UPS, we get people knocking on our doors to deliver things, and they even put it in our back door thinking that's the address. So, and it's the people that live there, but they think it's our back door, my daughter's back door, I'm sorry. I have to make that clear because I'm speaking for her. She's invalid and she can't get around. And but she hears a lot of noise, and I'm just wondering, with more people in the house, once the parents pass away, forgive me, I don't know who would move into that. I added extra people, extra grandkids, extra tenants. Who knows? There's so many bedrooms you could rent out a bedroom or two, and it worries me. My daughter's, she's, like I said, she's an invalid, but she's only in her 50s. She's got a lot of years to live there, and she's not about to move. And my parents died. They own the house right next door. My mom died at 99, and so I'm renting it out, but I feel that someday if my tenants move out and I have to move, if I get older and I'm having trouble now, I might have to move into my mom's house, and I don't want to have to worry about a lot of grandkids driving through or jumping through the fence or something like that, because we have had that problem. I thank you for listening. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will close the public comment. I will bring staff back up for just a moment. So, Mr. Smallwood, I'm hearing three things, and someone can correct me. I'm hearing parking issues, drive access, address issues.
Okay, I'm going to address the address issue first. We actually, this was brought to the attention of staff late today. The address is actually correct. I verified it on the Salt Lake County Assessor's website by verifying it with the parcel number. I also verified it with the U.S. Postal Service, and also with Murray City. That's what we have as the address is 6231 South Fashion Boulevard. So that's what we have, and that's what the county has. So I'm not sure how to address that issue. Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Jared, just real quick, have they got the address on the house?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it.
Because that's required by code.
Yes.
I think.
And that I'll have the applicant address that.
Okay.
Because I didn't particularly see it, but I wasn't actually looking for it either. So, but actually, might have an answer here. I don't see it on here. Yeah. So also, the parking, that's why we're having them remove the shed and placing those 4 additional stalls there on the property. I was very adamant that all the parking needs to be located on their property. It can't be on the border, on the property line, because as you can see here on the on this site plan here, that dashed line actually shows the property line, and so I am requiring that those 4 parking spaces are for them, located on their park.
And if the neighbors were to continue to have issues with that, what is their recourse? What are they able to do?
They're able to report a concern on the Murray website. On our website, we have a report a concern there that then code enforcement can come out and see if they're inoperable vehicles or if they're not working, then they can possibly remove them. I'm not sure. That is, there is an easement, an access easement on there, so I'm not sure legally how that works. About storing cars there, I'm not sure how that works, unfortunately. And then I'm sorry, what was the third one?
Can I ask a
Please.
Address discussion you resolve for our purposes, but for people in the area who still have more questions, who would we refer them to?
I mean, postal service, or
the
county probably.
They have folks that they do addressing, that's their job. So that's one way. Postal service, we have an address coordinator, but we don't have, what people like the county has, so that's where we would start.
The county.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the affidavit that has to be signed for an accessory dwelling unit and what the rules are with who can live in the accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah, of course. So with with constructing an accessory dwelling unit as a requirement to actually begin to rent that out or use that, we require that an affidavit be filled out and recorded with Salt Lake County that states that there can only be two persons living in the main dwelling and 2 persons living in the accessory dwelling unit to consist of a family.
Is that 2 adults?
2 adults.
2 adults and their children.
2 adults and their children.
So the accessory dwelling unit, occupancy of the accessory dwelling unit is limited to up to 2 related or unrelated adults and their children.
2 children. Yeah.
No, their children.
Their children.
They could have
Okay.
4.
Right. So it does kind of self-police.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could put 4 children.
And then
it's just 2 bedrooms.
What's to stop them from renting out a room? Is that an option in this situation?
I can't really speak to that. I mean,
it's not legal for
permitted.
them. It's not permitted. That's what I
true.
should say.
I'm
It's not
sorry. Yes, it is.
Yeah, Mr. McNulty.
Yeah, that's something where we would rely on code enforcement or the residents doing a report of concern or calls. And we would go out and take a look if we have to, if we hear that. Hopefully that's not the case. Another question came up about them using the road too much back and forth. Well, if you look at the aerial, we have 4 properties that all have a right, or 4 homes, you can see that all have a right to utilize that private lane. And that's a civil matter. If we have people that want to take that to task, that's a civil matter between them and their neighbors, where they may have to hire legal counsel, but we can't hop in that. They each have a right to utilize that road.
Ma'am, I'm going to actually ask that you not yell out. So we've closed the public comment period, so this is now just our discussion.
Just for clarification, what are the regulations or stipulations on how many people can live in the dwelling? Not the accessory dwelling, but the main?
The main dwelling, we have a definition of family in our code, and what does it say, Jared?
So the definition,
Yep.
Sorry. So the short answer to how many people can live in a home is not really contained in a zoning code. Those are health regulations, numbers of people in bedrooms, et cetera, so it varies from home to home and family to family. But Jim's referring to our definition of a family, and this is based on state codes and federal codes. Up to 4 unrelated people living together, sharing a home, sharing cooking facilities, et cetera, are a family. Can be a family. This is a large home. There are 7 bedrooms plus the accessory dwelling units being put in. We are only dealing with and kind of scrutinizing under code tonight, the accessory dwelling unit. So what Zach's done in the report that you have and in the presentation is analyzed the allowance that we give under conditional use permit rules for accessory dwelling units, and it meets all of those.
Yes.
It's less than the 40%, it's less than 1,000, it's not more than 2 bedrooms. It doesn't violate any of those rules. So our scope is kind of limited to that conditional use
Right.
permit request. And like Zach said, if there are problems with multiple families or they're renting out rooms in those 7 bedrooms in the main house, that's a code enforcement issue that we will pursue with vigor if we need to. So
And you could revoke the business licenses associated with
based on
this.
that kind of code complaint, absolutely.
Sure, and we get those type of complaints every week, and then we respond to them. Not every week, but they're common.
They come in,
You-
yeah.
You know, people complaining, do they have a permit? We never heard about it. So-and-so's living there. We look at all those things as needed.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that I think Phil and I were the only ones on the commission when the ADU was brought in as a something that we could do. Before that, there wasn't any regulations on renting out your basement or doing this type of stuff. And so by bringing in the ADU and putting together the requirements, it actually gives more guidance and allows the city to kind of enforce it a little bit more. And so to Mr. Hall's point, I mean, if this applicant meets all of they meet everything on here. They say they're willing to comply with it. Obviously, I appreciate all the citizens coming out because these things are really important to come, and they're also on record. So citizens that said things, it's important to understand that your concerns have been heard by us, by the applicant, by other people, and they will be in the minutes. And so if there are things that come up later, you can always refer to those. That is public record. And then we just have to trust the process. We have to trust the city and the staff and the code enforcement, and then also be vigilant as neighbors. Be nice, be kind, but also be vigilant. And if you see code violations, then make sure to report them using the appropriate channels. So.
And the reality is this applicant has come before us, and this happens in the city all the time where they have not come before us and not put in formal applications and are technically doing it illegally.
Right.
They're at least trying to do this above
They rent
board.
them to 17 different people, and so the fact that the applicant's coming is doing the right way, we appreciate that. So.
But we would hope that you've heard what's been said tonight about parking and the like, and do your best to deal with it. I would actually, that would be great. Why don't you come on up and I'll let you address it. Thanks, Mr. Smallwood.
So I do want to say that I do have 8 of my own children living in the home right now. So I do have quite a few children, and I do have a few teenagers. However, the part where they're saying that the teenagers are jumping across the thing, like, they're not necessarily my children. I've never actually been notified of any of my children actually hopping over somebody's fence. If they was one of children, I would appreciate if you would tell me. I would make sure they would never do that. But I've had people from shoplifters and different people from the mall hopping through fences and going all through the neighborhood and several times, and just all because of the situation of our homes. There are other kids in the neighborhood do that, hop through the houses just to get to the mall faster. And so I was going to say that if you did ever see one of mine, please let me know, and I will make sure that will never happen again, because that is definitely not allowed. Now, I was going to address, too, also the mailing situation. So apparently the reason why the house was at 6229 South when we moved in there, and that's what was on the mailbox, is because it was actually her brother that built the house, and they were kind of doing the same property. And so when I went and I says, can I change this address? They says, we'll have to go through a process to get that changed. And we are seriously trying to get that changed. I do not, as much as mail goes to their house, their mail comes to my house too. So it has been a situation, and it does bother me just as much as them. I'm so trying to get that changed, because when we did find out from the county, they said it is 6231. So I'm like, okay, I need to get my mail changed to this address, so it is sent here. So we are addressing that issue, and they did say that there is a process that we can go through to get that changed. And what was the other issue?
Just parking in general.
Parking. Okay, so the parking situation too is, I know that they think that all the cars that are parked on that street are all mine, but when Christmas came, then what happened is when the mall is full, they drive over and they all park right there so they can walk across the street and they can't park there. And so there were actually several cars during the Christmas season, when Thanksgiving, Black Friday, all that kind of situation, there was so many cars, and there were different times when I called and I'm like, are these your guys' cars? And I didn't know, and I asked my kids, are these your friends' cars? There have been times when my son's friends have come over and kind of parked a little bit, but when they did call the police on us, the police said that is totally fine. You guys, you can actually park there. You're totally fine. And so they said that it was not a situation that we should be concerned about. But I did tell my son to still make sure that his friends try not to park there. We do only have 4 cars that are actually parked at my house at that time, and they are by me and my children. And so I don't
You
know.
do understand that your or that whoever lives in this space will be required to park in these 4 designated
Oh, yes,
spots.
yes.
Okay.
And we, and like today, we haven't actually, like me or my sons or any of their friends have not parked there for weeks. The last time anyone was parked there was during the mall rush when other people were parking there. I have told my children we don't want to park on the side. But like I said, when the policeman came over, he said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your friends or anyone else parking on the side. That is you have as much right to park there as anyone else in the neighborhood. So, but I do know it bothers them. So I have told my children we do not park there and we do not park there. And so if they do have a problem, then please just come talk to me. Well, the driveway is the right of way and we all have to use the driveway.
Okay, so ma'am, I'm going to have you talk to me, and
That's good. No,
That's
you're
it.
good. You're good. Anyway, I totally understand. We are trying to be really nice neighbors and make sure everything works and for everybody. And we do want to make sure that this is the right and we meet code in every situation and everything is right and good. And yeah, I do have quite a few children. I'm sorry, but I love my kids and I am trying to make sure that they have manners. I don't think that they were the ones that actually jumped in these guys' backyards. I have had several other neighbors jump in my backyard and people from the mall and different situations, but
I was a frequent fence jumper.
Yeah.
I terrorized the neighborhood, so I'm going to...
And look at him.
It could have been mine, but if they were, please let me know. I will make sure that does not happen again. Anyway, but yeah, if there is anything else that I need to meet, then I do really appreciate you guys letting me know. I do want to make sure that we are good neighbors and that we are doing everything the way that we're supposed to. Anyway, thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, back up here for discussion and or motion.
I'd like to ask one question. So is it appropriate for us to add another condition to have the address changed in the
I don't think so.
in the conditions?
The address is actually, the address that is tied to the parcel ID.
I don't think we can
The
add
address that is tied to the parcel ID is 6231 South. That has been changed. What they're trying to get changed now is that a whole bunch of utility companies and a whole bunch of mail has been coming for years and years and years to a different address. That's what's being addressed right now with the post office. But the post office has 6231 as well. It's going to take time for this kind of address change to shift. There's really not a condition to
Yeah, we don't need
give
to
them.
address that.
Because the official address is 6231. So. The address that's tied to the parcel ID is 6231 South, Fashion Boulevard.
Understand. Okay.
All right.
So I'll...
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6231 South Fashion Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 10.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a conditional use permit to allow an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6231 South Fashion Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 10. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Knapp.
Yes, motion carries. Good luck. Be good neighbors and talk to each other. All right, item number 7 this evening is Cottonwood Animal Hospital seeking conditional use for a veterinary clinic at the property address 6364 South Highland Drive. Is that applicant here this evening? Yep. Okay, we'll have you up in just a moment.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chair Ney. So the overhead, we've identified the property or the building in question where they're proposing to put the animal urgent care or animal hospital. You can see that. You can see 6400 South and Highland Drive on 2 edges of the property. The zoning is neighborhood commercial. That's been in place for quite some time, and there's no proposed to change that in any way, shape, or form. Again, here is the office building in question, and you get a feel for the site plan. As per the staff report, there's ample parking. They meet the parking requirements. And then a couple other things we'll need to discuss is there is a dumpster on site that does not have a dumpster enclosure. We need to have a dumpster enclosure to be compliant with our zoning ordinance, so we've conditioned it that way. There's also a lot consolidation or lot line adjustment that needs to occur on the property. We have one parcel that is just under an acre in size, 0.95, and another parcel that's quite small, 0.02. So there'll have to be a lot line adjustment. This drawing or site plan, the information we have does not include that, but Susan Nixon has been working with the applicant and will process that with our engineering staff. And then landscaping along Highland Drive and 6400 South is quite nice on the site. However, a lot of it's older vegetation that's been there for quite some time. We need to look at the requirements of our current code versus what's out there and make a logical determination. And so that, we'll work with the applicant and do something that works for the site, for them as well as us. We're not going to just say, take things out. We certainly don't want it to be that way because we have beautiful mature vegetation in the area. Kind of the floor plan. So they're proposing to use about 53 or 5,400 square feet of the bottom floor of that building in question. That bottom floor is just over 97, and it's at 9,755 square feet. So, a little bit more of half of that space in question is what they'd be using. And this is just kind of an idea of their exam rooms and treatment locations and things of that nature. The building's beautiful. It's an all brick building. No question there are no changes being proposed in any way, shape, or form. And then this is helpful. So we have some pictures of the site. And so when you see the upper right-hand picture that says East Side Highland Drive frontage, you look straight through the site and you see the white Toyota 4Runner. That's where their access would be. So that's where the new access, ingress and egress to and from their space or unit will be occurring. And then you can see some of the landscaping there. When you look, you see nice conifers, evergreen type trees. And we'll work around that with some bushes and shrubs as needed to meet our ordinance, nothing major. Again, there's that dumpster enclosure that we have a concern with that's just sitting on site. Planning Commission's aware that we do this with everybody that comes in for conditional use. They do have to comply with our ordinance and standards, some fencing between them and other properties. As a result, staff would recommend conditional use approval for the clinic, the animal urgent care at this location, subject to the 7 conditions as listed in the overhead and in our staff report. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Nope. Anything to preclude them from opening up the fencing from the north to be able to just easier get back and forth between their two properties?
No, I don't think so, and thank you for bringing that up. That might be helpful to them. I'm not sure what that solution would be, but let's ask them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah.
If we could have representative of the applicant. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Bagley. I'm from Draper, Utah, 12471 Draper Grove Court. I'm one of the owners of the building at 6364 South Highland Drive. And to answer your question, there is a possibility of opening up a spot, for foot traffic only.
Yeah. Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the 7 conditions?
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to review the 7 conditions, and we want to be totally compliant in that. We still have a number of tenants, both in the lower level of that building as well as the upper level, and would like to be more than accommodating to their needs and minimize any impact on them and their businesses.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? It's a pretty straightforward application. Thank you. We'll open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. State your name and address, please. Good evening.
My name's Jan Caldwell. I live at 1951 East, 6400 South. We live immediately west of the office building. And I just wanted to make sure we have just a couple concerns. When the building was originally built, my wife's family built it, so, we were in on it. We were told to put the dumpster, where it is. We're concerned that dumpster gets put against the back fence, like where it's, we already have one dumpster back there. We don't need 2. It makes a lot of noise at 5:30 in the morning.
Sure does.
When they pick it up.
Yeah.
So I want to pursue, and then I also have a right of way. If you can pull that, the
aerial.
Where the lay of the land.
That? That's
the aerial.
The best one. That's the site plan.
Yeah, we have a.
To the west.
our house, excuse me, is like right in here, and we have a right-of-way that goes down through here and then out to 6400, and I just want to make sure we don't impact, you know, the right-of-way, you know. There's actually a little lawn barn on it right now that's kind of parked on our right-of-way that we thought we had sold, and when my wife's family sold the building, we thought we got rid of it, but evidently it didn't happen like we thought it would to free up that right-of-way. I just want to make sure that we're protected. We're interested in being good neighbors too, and we appreciate, we've had discussions before, and I'm prepared to talk about that lot line adjustment too. We've done some work on that, and if you'd like, we can take that offline, and I'm sure we can work something out.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Don Bigelow, Dr. Don Bigelow. I'm the tenant directly above the area that's proposed to be built. My concerns are the impact. I treat obviously humans, and there's 2 other dentists in the building as well. And I noticed on the plan, the proposed plan, if you bring up that floor plan again, there is an entrance right off the main entrance into that area from the lobby, and there's stairways there. I was told that entrance would not be there anymore. There's a main entrance that's going to come in off of the east side of that building, and if we have my patients coming in through that lobby and they see animals coming through there as well, it's going to impact my business quite a bit. Also, I'm concerned about the possibility of odors affecting me right directly above from animals. When I'm treating patients in my office, I use medical gases as well and sedate my patients, and we try to keep that office as clean as possible. I'm worried about what impact is going to happen with ventilation, with the possibility of just from animals coming in the building and possibly contaminating my area. There's a drop ceiling there with ceiling tiles. My plumbing and ventilation and air conditioning and electrical goes through that drop ceiling. And I'm not sure whether or not they're going to have a hard ceiling to prevent odors, or if they're going to have a ventilation system that's going to keep separate from my location and the other doctors that are in that building treating patients. So the concerns that I have are animals coming in and out affecting my patients. I've been there for 18 years, one of the first tenants that moved into that building when it was first built. And it would, all the other 2 doctors that are with me in other suites in that building have the same concerns about sterilization, contamination, odors, animals coming in and out of the lobby or being impacted, and the parking areas where we have our patients that come in, as well as the patients that will be coming in the animal hospital.
Okay. Perfect. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment. I'll actually have the applicant come back up and have you kind of address. First off, why don't we go with the dumpster? Just a single dumpster will remain, right? You're not adding an additional dumpster. Yeah. So you'll build an enclosure for that single dumpster. We're not talking about changing 2 dumpsters in the middle of the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
No, we'd like to minimize any noise from that, and wherever it's going to be best to help minimize that, we'll definitely enclose it.
And then the lobby entrance.
Yeah, we appreciate Dr. Bigelow. He's a tenant that's been there for a long time, and we'd like to definitely minimize any impact. And those are things we've talked about. So for the entrance, there will only be the entrances coming off of the east end of the building, and the only entrance for animals will be through that east entrance.
Staff can still go through in the lobby, but the animals will not be coming through in the lobby.
They will not be coming through that atrium.
Do you have separate doors for cats and dogs? Or will it just be it'll just be the same
entrance on the east.
One entrance and then split off from the lobby. Okay.
Correct. To address the issues of sound, we have architects, medical architects that are working on that work with veterinary hospitals and clinics in similar situations and buildings, and they're planning on putting in soundboard to minimize any sound. There will not be animals that will be staying there. This is an urgent care facility, so there's no hospitalization of animals over the night like there is at, Cottonwood Animal Hospital. This is merely similar to an urgent care facility in human medicine, where animals will be coming in during the day, being seen by a doctor, and then being discharged if anything requires hospitalization. They'll be staying at a different facility.
Are there specialized HVAC rules for a facility like this versus a physician office versus just regular office? Were they on separate HVAC systems?
I don't know if there's requirements there, but we are planning on a separate ventilation system that's being designed with the contractors.
And they are licensed by the state, right? You're regulated by the state. So if there are ventilation requirements that are different, the state will be able to address that at the time of licensure.
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear your comments. Can you just state your name and address, please?
Dennis Law, and I'm with the 6364 South Group. I'm also a veterinarian. All three of us are here, and we've been neighbors for a long time. But for the last 35 years, I've worked on a number of hospitals, and we try to isolate both sound and odor. Odor's always a big concern. I don't think there's really much chance of any contamination, if any. I really don't think there's any. There's not going to be any cross movement of animals back and forth. But the architect that we've hired deals specifically with veterinary hospitals to work, and one of their biggest emphasis is on air movement, having the right kind of air movement. We require a lot more exchanges of air than just a regular medical facility might. And so we spend a lot of time and actually spend a lot of investment on that too. Things have changed a lot in the last 30 years too. It's much better now than it was 30 years ago. But we're very serious about it. The last thing we want to have is someone to come in our front office and have a bad odor or an unwelcome smell or we work very hard to keep our hospitals clean and sterile and presentable. We rely on that. So.
Okay. All right. Discussion. Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit for a veterinarian clinic at the property address 6364 South Highland Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 7 as listed in the application.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Markham to approve a conditional use permit for a veterinary clinic at the property address 6364 South Highland Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 7. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hacker. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Kamen?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Mr. Nate?
Yes, motion carries. Good luck. I'm glad you guys are continuing to expand your business in our city. Thank you. Item number 8 this evening is Tecton CrossFit seeking a conditional use for a CrossFit gym at the property address 4630 South, 500 West, Unit A. Is that applicant here this evening? Perfect. We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. 4730 South, 500 West, number A is the location. This is sometimes on Google Maps, you're going to see it as Riverside Drive, and even on some addressing, it's 500 West to me because that's where my office is located, not far to the north. This is the old Davidson Marine. The sign's still up, if any of you have noticed it there. Huner Mill occupies this building here and some offices as well on the other side. Both of the buildings that are located here kind of share this access, and the parking comes off of that main access. As we noted in the report, there's no real formal sort of curb cut access here. This is all open curb, and a lot of parking occurs in this area. This is MG zoning. Gym function like Tecton CrossFit is allowed with a conditional use permit, review and approved by the Planning Commission in this zoning. I just wanted to show you a couple of photographs. As I mentioned, there is that open curb, and there's some parking that happens similarly on other locations and along Fifth West as well, but in here. In the parking analysis in the report, we talk about the applicant's indication they could add a couple of stalls here. There's room for maybe 2 stalls before you get to the overhead door, and then the property narrows to the point where you would be backing directly onto Fifth West without the ability to sort of level out and come out the main entrance. So maybe 2 stalls could be provided. We'll have to see that striped. That brings us to a larger conversation about parking that I want to get to. This is a gym not like Planet Fitness, for example, where there's a lot of equipment and people come and go, et cetera. This is a CrossFit gym, so people attend classes, and that is all. So there are certain sessions run. There was a narrative provided by the applicants that's in your report. They have classes in the morning, late morning, and then again after hours, 4:30 and moving on. So we feel like with the other uses in the facility, there's probably adequate parking, but we've only been able to identify about 9 that are permanently committed. We've recommended that they maybe add a couple of stalls where they're able to out front, and then procure other guaranteed stalls through other means. Other tenants in the building can give up stalls, or the property management can identify a couple more stalls. There are stalls that could be used. I spent some time over there on 2 different days. There are open stalls, but we want to see up to 15. Based on the applicant's narrative, we think that class sizes, if we limit the class sizes to 15 people and we procure 15 guaranteed spaces, with crossover and ability to park in other shared parking spaces there, it should be okay. But that's the conditions that we've recommended for parking, procuring 15 guaranteed and then limiting class sizes. If you look at the overhead here, there's this is Unit A in this larger building. So the larger building is quite big. This space where Davidson Marine was located and Tecton proposes to relocate from they're in Murray right now, actually. They've been in Murray for a number of years. They'll be relocating from their current position to here. This is about 6,100 square feet. About 4,700 square feet of that would be the gym space where they would function, and then there's some restrooms and offices and a changing area that accounts for about 1,300, 1,400 more square feet. So again, this is the area of that building, but as we showed you in that other overhead, there's some other parking again adjacent here. If it's not possible to procure a few extra stalls here, we might be able to get it from Huter Mill. We'll leave that to the applicants. If they can verify those stalls for us, we're comfortable as staff that the parking is adequate. Just a couple of shots looking at that from across the street on Fifth West here, and then looking at the building. This is the area that would be Tecton CrossFit. You can actually see the conditional use permit sign posted there. We are recommending approval with those conditions, the first 2 of which we already talked about. And there's a change of use analysis required by the building official. He's been in touch with the applicant extensively over the last week or so, right? And so that's in the works. There might be some changes. They're not proposing any changes to the building. They're not moving so much as a wall inside, except for what's required by the building official for that change of use analysis. Any questions for staff on this?
Questions?
In this situation, I know in previous situations we've added or had a condition involved where we did not allow outside training or physical activities to be conducted. Would that be appropriate in this situation?
Yes, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I didn't remember the last time we did this. We did have that requirement because it was in a similar location in the industrial zones. Fifth West is busy. As it goes forward, I'm going to forget the count, but we're carrying several thousand cars a day, maybe 7,000 at the intersection of 53rd, where 5th becomes 7th and goes all the way out. This is a busy road, and the parking lot is busy. A lot of employees in and out, some clients of theirs in and out, larger trucks in and out. So outside activity is probably not appropriate here. It's probably an appropriate condition. I didn't include it. I think it's appropriate for you to ask.
That's fine. I would like, when you're addressing the applicant, if you would mention that, to see if they're willing to comply.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anything else for staff? Thank you all.
All right, thank you. If we could have the applicant come up. Good evening. Thanks for your patience. It's been a long meeting already.
Excuse me, my name is Brett Wilson. I live in Stonefly Drive in Sandy, Utah.
Perfect. Have you had an opportunity to review the 6 conditions that we have for you?
Yes, and I mean, I do have a question. Yeah, we agree to all of those. The only one I had a question on is just number 1. It was our intention that we would limit all the class sizes during working hours, like the 7:30 to 4:30 or 8 to 5. But we do have some classes that have 20 size people. You know, we can't just have all of them be 15. So, but the parking in that facility is available. Most every business is closed after 4:30. So as long as we can procure parking spots and make sure everybody's happy, then that would be the only other question I have is.
Mr. Hall, you're comfortable with, okay. So we can limit you to 15 students during your business hour classes, and then anything after 5 p.m.
Or
if we
earlier.
could open it up. Yeah. Okay. Also, with the suggestion from Mr. Markham saying that outside activities.
Yeah, in the past, we've had some facilities that have outside activity areas, but this one doesn't really lend itself, and we're comfortable just working out inside the gym.
Okay. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to the presentation this evening?
No, I don't think so.
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thanks.
We will open this up for public comment if anyone would like to speak to this issue. Seeing none, I will close public comment. Bring it back up here. Oh, actually, I lied. I'm sorry.
My name is Linda Peterson, and I own property across the street, 4727 and 4747 Riverside Drive, and I'm concerned about parking. And it isn't always true that people are through at 5 o'clock. These manufacturing companies, and right now, the companies that I lease to aren't particularly busy, but sometimes they are. And we're across the street, so I guess we can just, and we want to be good neighbors, I'm not saying that. And I love gyms. I'm 80 years old and I've gone to gyms all my life, but I also know that it's sometimes hard to find parking around a gym, even when there's a lot of parking, and I am just concerned about the parking space.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment. Bring it back up here for discussion. I mean, to me, it does look like there are a significant number of opportunities to park. Yeah. And I think as long as he can secure some sort of agreement, staff is comfortable with allowing. I mean, Mr. Hall, do you have a limit in what you would like to see? Do you?
Sorry, yeah, that's, I'm actually comfortable with the 15 procured all the time and the limit after hours, after 5:30. I have been over there after hours. Can you hear me still?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
During business hours?
During business hours, if we have 15 procured and the class sizes are limited, there's a number of parking stalls that are available and shared as already. If they are able to procure 15 guaranteed and verify that, we're all right with that. And then after hours, if the class sizes are larger than 15, I'm really not concerned.
Do you need any parking agreements in place for after hours for you to be comfortable to increase that number, or?
I really don't. We're talking about 20 or 21 students versus 15. There are dozens of parking stalls that would become available after hours, generally speaking. I can't promise that that's always going to be the case. There aren't going to be late nights sometimes, but I do not think it would be a problem. I've been in that area enough to.
You live there, yeah.
I have a question. Do we need to be concerned about opening up that non-business hours unlimited class size? Should we say still within some parameters, or does the space alone prevent?
Because they can't operate out, because they can't work outside, and they've got the 4,100 square feet inside, that is going to limit, and the kinds of, I don't personally do CrossFit. I know it's hard to believe. But I have seen it, and it does take up some space per person. So
when you're throwing a big old truck tire around.
It's not going to be 40 people, even in that 4,100 square feet. You might have 20 or 21 or 22 people. I don't see an issue based on the size of the facility.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow a CrossFit gym at the property addressed 4730 South, 500 West, Unit A, subject to conditions 1 through 6, with the addition of condition 7 that shall state that no outside activities or training will be allowed.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Markham and a second by Mr. Woodbury to approve a conditional use permit to allow a CrossFit gym at the property address 4730 South, 500 West, Unit A. Can I read your subject to conditions 1 through 6 with condition 7 added to read, no outside activities, training or training shall be allowed.
Mr. Chair, does condition 1 need to be altered as well?
Just with the addition of during business hours, as discussed.
As discussed.
Mr. Markham, do you agree with that statement?
I would agree to that, just to
and Mr. Woodbury, on your motion, you agree with that statement as well? Okay. With the addition to number 1 as read into the record. Call for a vote, please.
Only this issue.
Exactly. Thanks, Phil. Going to have an altercation?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury.
What did Phil vote? Just kidding, yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries. Thanks for keeping your business in the city.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck. Items number 9 and 10 will be heard as a single agenda item. This is Circle A Estates seeking a conditional use for a single-family residential infill and preliminary and final subdivision approval of a 7-lot subdivision at the property address 777 and 787 West Bullion Street. Is that applicant here this evening? Great. We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Great. As you guys know, this was recently rezoned from agricultural to R18. It's located just west of 700 West and between Bullion and Anderson Avenue. There you can see it's in the R18 zone now. This applicant is proposing 7 lots, 4 that would be off a newly created cul-de-sac. Those would be lots 1, 2, 6, and 7, and then 3, 4, and 5 would be off Anderson Avenue. We are requesting a conditional use for this item because they are requesting what's called a single-family residential infill that would reduce the front and rear setbacks from 25 feet to 20 feet. The purpose of that is to allow the existing home on Lot 1 to remain as the property owner is trying to decide when and if she wants to demolish that home and rebuild. And then the rest of the additional thing is for the subdivision aspect of this. It is a fairly traditional subdivision with the 5.5-foot park strip, 4-foot wide sidewalk. The city engineers requested that we put that on Anderson Boulevard as well, which would require a little jog there. If I can show you, never mind, you can't see it because it's off screen. So we are requiring that as well. A little item here, which is there are sewer issues on Anderson Avenue where they are pretty shallow. So they have proposed putting the sewer coming from Bullion Street and coming down this new Blue Barn Circle, which is the new cul-de-sac. And then there will be easements on Lot 2 and 6 to access 3 and 5. And then there would also be a sewer access on Lot 4 just immediately off of that there. With that, these are just some existing pictures of the property. They have started doing some clearing out of just some trees and things, but largely the property has remained the same. So this does require 2 motions from you guys tonight, but staff is suggesting that you approve the conditional use permit and then forward a recommendation of approval to the mayor for the subdivision. Any questions for me?
I've just got one little question.
Sure.
With the sewer access coming in off of Bullion to service lots 3, 4, is it 3, 4, and 5?
Yes.
Is that going to affect the building envelope on those lots?
It does affect the do you mean on like 2 and 6?
On, well, the ones that are 2 and 6. Facing out to Anderson.
No, those would not affect them. As you can see, if you look on your screen, you can actually see those little dotted lines there. Those are going to be the sewer lines. So it will affect the building lots on Lot 6 and Lot 2. You can see those dashed lines. Those are building envelopes. And that's kind of, or I guess those are public utility easements.
Okay,
I apologize to that.
so instead of the sewer running out the front of the property, it'll
It's
run
just
out
running
the
out the
back.
rear. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Blue Barn Circle will be standard size public street, 100-foot turnaround, curb gutter, the whole.
Yes, sir.
So that's an improvement over what is currently there, the driveway.
That's correct. Yes.
Public roadway.
Yeah, complete public roadway.
Okay. Any additional questions? No. All right. If we could have the applicant come up. Welcome back.
Still have the problem with the mic here.
It's called height. You're too tall.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Jake Larson, 1474 West, 5550 South.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the 8 conditions?
Yes.
And be able to comply with those 8 conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Anything that you'd like to add to the discussion here this evening?
Nope. Zach did a great job. That's about it.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's a good project.
Thank you. We will open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. All right, seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back up here for discussion or motions.
All these people are here for the last issue.
Could be.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that the Planning Commission approve conditional use permit to allow a single-family residential infill subdivision at the properties addressed 777 and 787 West Billion, subject to the conditions listed.
All right.
1 through 8.
I have a motion by Mr. Hacker to approve a conditional use permit to allow a single-family residential infill subdivision of the property address 777 and 787 West Bullion Street, subject to conditions 1 through 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Milkevich. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Mr. Nate?
Yes. That motion carries. Next, I need a motion for the final or preliminary and final subdivisions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for that one also, that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the mayor for the proposed Circle A Estates preliminary and final subdivisions on the properties addressed 777 and 787 West Bullion Street, subject again to the following conditions 1 through 8 as listed.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Hacker to forward a recommendation of approval to the mayor for the proposed Circle A Estates preliminary and final subdivisions on the properties addressed 777 and 787 West Bullion Street, subject to conditions 1 through 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Woodbury. Call for vote.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Mr. Nate?
Yes. Motion carries. Good luck with your development.
Hi, Karen.
Item number 10 and 11 this evening is KC Heating and Air seeking a general plan amendment from residential neighborhood business to mixed use and a zoning map amendment at the property address 160 West Winchester Street. Is that applicant here this evening? Okay. We'll have you up in a moment. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. So this is an application, two applications. We're reviewing them together as we did the reports together. An application, as you said, to amend the general plan and the zoning map. By way of information for the record and for public that's here tonight, there are two amendments on the agenda. The one is for a portion of the general plan that's called the future land use map. Every parcel in the city has two kind of color-coded identifiers attached to it. The first of those is the future land use map designation, and that's what a property should want to be when it grows up, basically. The zoning map is, we try as best we can to tie our zoning to that future land use map designation. So you can identify a future land use for a parcel and say, if there's going to be a change to this parcel, we think it ought to conform with certain zones that are attached or identified by that future land use map designation. This is an attempt or a request to modify both of those identifiers for these two parcels here. And I forgot the address already, but it's listed there. Thanks. 160 West Winchester. So those two parcels, it's just under a third of an acre, 0.28 acres. Right now, the parcels are zoned RNB, residential neighborhood business, as are a couple of others on either side of them. And the future land use map also identifies them for neighborhood business or residential business. This is the RNB zone, as you can see, surrounding it. Actually, right to the south of it, I'm sorry, I always do that, geographic dyslexia, every time. Just to the north of it, this is the edge of the parking lot for the tracks, the park and ride lot there at the Fashion Place West Station, and it's actually zoned MG, General Manufacturing. But the properties we're talking about are zoned RNB. In the larger area, too, there's some other RNB zoning and some residential single-family zoning, as you note in your report. The area is kind of a mixed bag of different zones. The two parcels, this is a section that you're seeing here from the zoning map that we talked about in the kind of the explanation there. This is a section from the future land use map. That same kind of color indicates residential business. There is one zone tied to that residential business category or designation, and that is the RNB zone. As the commission is aware, up and down the north side of Winchester Street, we have that designation in place. Several of those properties, quite a few in this particular area, and then several going up Winchester Street to the east to 9th East have been rezoned to RNB, residential neighborhood business, and then continuing around on on the west side of 900 East. Checked your reports really carefully to make sure I kept saying the north side of Winchester, because your original reports all
Also
said
the
south
south
side of
side.
Winchester. I promise. Had to fix that when I noticed it. So, to continue on with this discussion, I just wanted to show you quickly, this is from the air. You can see the parcels here that are under application tonight for that change. And then again, that tracks park and ride. This is I-215, the corridor back there. This parcel is R&B zoned. There's a dance studio being operated there. This is just a shot of the home, and then there are a couple of outbuildings to the rear on that second lot to the rear. I can address that actually in just a moment, but that's a shot of the front of those two parcels, and that's what we've reviewed for this application. We are recommending denial of both of those applications for a couple of reasons. The findings we made in your report, to kind of distill those down, it comes down to the length of time that we've had a general plan in place. This section of the future land use map is less than 2 years old at this point. It's about 1.5 years old. We considered these properties when we looked at the future land use map and the general plan that was adopted in 2017, and continued to impose that residential business future land use map designation here.
That was unchanged
Unchanged from before.
from the prior. Okay.
Yep, previously. So we're going on, and the zoning was changed a number of years ago as well. I think I put that in your report. But yeah, we're going on 2 iterations of the general plan that have identified this for residential business. We didn't want to take a change of it lightly or individually either, as opposed to a larger area. The other reason being that we are on the cusp of getting a grant that will allow us to study this whole area surrounding the track station. So again, on this map that you can see, this purpler color, or I don't know what color that is, but
Violet.
thank you. One of those colors. This is mixed use. So right now, this is zoned MG, manufacturing general, but this future land use map tells us if we consider things, we ought to consider a mixed use type zone. Mixed use would include transit-oriented development zoning, mixed-use zoning, the MCCD zone, or some zone that we don't currently have that might be tailored more to the Fashion Place area, as we tailored the Fireclay zone, or the TOD zone, to the Fireclay area. So without kind of the knowledge or the information that we would get from a finer grain study like the one we're proposing to do around the Fashion Place West Station this year, we don't feel comfortable recommending that this is a good change to make right now, in either case, the future land use map or the zoning map. To the point of the other property, this is another piece of property that I understand the applicant has under contract. It was not included in the parcel IDs that we had for the application, so we noticed everything for these 2 properties alone, so they are the only ones on your agenda for consideration. And they're the only ones that can be appropriately considered because we did not notice the other piece because of the parcel IDs that we had. So understanding that, we're going forward with it the way it is. We've talked to the applicant about that. He did want to continue rather than postpone and renotice. So any questions for staff at this point? I'll go to the recommendation slide. It does require 2 recommendations. It is 2 separate applications, requires 2 separate motions. To be clear for the public, the Planning Commission is an advising body. You make a recommendation to the City Council, and they make the final determination on those applications.
Which simply means that this will be heard regardless of what decision comes down tonight. It still has to go to the City Council and have, again, public comment periods. And
correct. They hold their own public hearing for it, take comment, et cetera.
Okay, do you want to spend just a minute differentiating what type of uses are allowed in mixed use that are not allowed in residential neighborhood business?
Sure, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to that main map here.
Because when considering these changes, we have to consider any possible change of or building that could be built in this area.
Correct, and I didn't kind of enumerate in the presentation, but we did in the report talk about how the applicant is a heating and air conditioning contractor. Contractors are allowed on a certain scale in the mixed-use zone. They're allowed in the MG zone and in the CD zone, but in the mixed-use zone, they are allowed on a certain scale, indoor storage only, less than 12,000 square feet. In the R&B zone, they are not allowed. A couple of other things. The residential neighborhood business allows very sort of limited development for offices and smaller uses like that. It does allow single-family and 2-family uses. The proposed mixed use, are we talking about the zone or the category? We're talking about the zoning, right?
Yes.
So the mixed use zone allows, like I said, for contractors. It allows for larger, higher density multifamily housing that's located over a commercial main floor. It doesn't allow for single family homes, two-family homes. It only allows for those larger, higher density housing opportunities over commercials. And it does allow a wider range of industrial type, smaller scale industrial, but industrial uses that are on small scale, and a lot of retail uses as well, and offices as well. So there's a significant difference in the types of uses that are allowed. So there you go.
Any additional questions for Mr. Hall?
Jared, in our staff materials here, it also states the designation is intended to allow high-density multi-dwelling structures with a mix of uses in the same building or complex. So
right.
That we're not talking like housing, or are we? Or?
Well, yes, housing and other uses as well. So the mixed uses of they couldn't really be more distinct. The RNB carries with it a whole bunch of, as you guys are aware, carries with it a whole bunch of determination or design considerations. Limited heights, 30 feet. Certain uses, as we already talked about, but then also buffering requirements and landscaping requirements, hours of operation, et cetera. We don't do that in the mixed use. It's a very broad zone intended for very intense development. And it may be appropriate near a transit station like this. We're not comfortable recommending that this change should be made at this time with that pending study and with the current plan that we have in place that we did consider with the consultants during that process of the general plan readoption this last
So
2017.
at the end of the day, this really does come down to just timing for you. Until that study is complete, you're not comfortable with making any recommendations one way or another.
That study could come back recommending any number of things for changes in this area, and it could have to do with timing as well. So that's, and we very well might, it might come back not a mixed use because the uses in the mixed use category, for example, are so broad, including some of those contractor uses and more industrial uses, et cetera. It may not be appropriate this close to a track station. It might be that we need to tailor a zone like the TOD zone was tailored for Fireclay to the track station here as well. We don't have that information yet, and we don't want to make a decision without it.
On the flip side of what you just said, not knowing yet, this area might be appropriate for mixed use, or it might be appropriate to stay a residential zone because it acts as a buffer to the residential area to the south.
Correct. So it to the north, it's got the I-215 border. However, and it's not, I don't have a larger map to show you, but that yellow that you see is the beginning of a large area of very established single-family area. So that's got to be taken into consideration in the study too. It won't be as simple as just saying, well, you're adjacent to track, so mixed use. It might be something much more subtle than that. We need to study that and have a finer grain to that analysis.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff at this point?
I think we're good. Thank you. We'll have the applicant come up. Good evening. Thanks for being at the end of a very long agenda. Sorry about that.
All good. So, Kevin Colazzi. I live on 5937 South, 620 East in Murray. I've had my business in Murray for 18 years. I'm looking to buy a property that I can actually own and have. My plan is, the only reason I'm here to change the zone is so my business can actually fit in the area. I plan to rent the house out to a family in the front. Eventually my daughters probably will live there. I don't have any intent to do anything different than that. The back structures, there shows on one of the pictures, there's some back buildings. That's where my business will be located. As far as addressing the parcel to the side, which I am buying with it, I didn't realize until this week earlier that it had a different address. So it's 150 and 160. I knew there was 3 parcels. I thought I was submitting for 3 parcels by mistake. Due to a contract that I have to buy the property, I couldn't delay it, so I had to move forward with this meeting. So that's where I'm at.
Why do you feel this zone change should be made?
So, looking at the demographics, I mean, I own my own business, started when I was young, self-made. It makes sense for a little bit different than just light commercial, given the I-215 proximity to the back of the property. I mean, that's where my business is going to be located anyways, in the back. You walk back there, you can hear cars. That's what you hear. Obviously, I live in Murray. I love living in Murray. I've had chances to leave Murray, my own house, business. I don't want to leave Murray. So I understand the sensitivity to the neighbors, to the side, to the back, front. I don't want to cause an issue with them either. I just feel like there's big back building. The property's kind of run down a little bit. It needs cleaned up. It needs fixed up so it looks nice. Nice house in the front, someone living in there. In the back, I have my business. Keep it clean.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
one more
Please
thing.
do.
So before I went to all this, obviously, I met with the city councilman, and then I was able to meet with the second city councilman to get their feedback, because I knew it would ultimately go to them, and we vote for them. And if that was a concern area in my neighborhood, I'd have a concern too. And after having those meetings, I had felt good about moving forward, even though I need to change the zoning to make my business work.
Any questions? All right, we'll let you take a seat and we'll open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. Welcome. Thanks for your patience this evening as well.
Oh, no worries. I deal with children all day. This is easy. My name is Jennifer Sorensen. I, too, am self-made. I own a business at 180 West Winchester Street. We were actually the first business to get the R&B zoning in 2007. The reason that we bought that property to put our commercial daycare is because it is a home. It is a 3-story home. It looks like a home. It feels like a home. And the whole wonderfulness of this R&B that was put together at that point was that these children would be in a home environment for commercial. I am here representing myself, the neighbor. So there's this property, then there's the dance studio, and then I am next door. And then behind me is Brian and Pam DeMann. Next door to me is their son Bryce and Mary DeMann. And next door to them is Matt Jackson. They are all unfortunately out of the country and out of the state at the moment. They really wanted to be here. So let me read you their letters, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
So this is from Brian, Pam, Bryce, and Mary DeMann. It says, "To whom it may concern, my name is Brian DeMann and family. I live at 194 and 190 West Winchester. I will be out of town on January 17th and unable to attend the Planning Commission meeting on that night. My son Bryce owns the house at 190 West. I am confident that anyone who sees our properties will know that we not only work hard to maintain them, but also try to improve their appearance. This is our home. We desire to stay here and be proud of where we live. Please protect and support our efforts as residents to keep this a nice place to live. Thank you for your help." And this one says, "To whom it may concern, as a resident of Murray and Winchester Street, I am opposed to any industrial or fabrication business in our neighborhood. Even though Winchester Street is a busy street, it's a neighborhood and our homes. Smaller, low-impact businesses such as daycare, bookstore, office space don't impact our lives. The sound of sheet metal being fabricated and big install trucks in and out do. If nothing else, it's a precedent. What's next? A car mechanic shop next door? There are plenty of places in Murray for industrial businesses. Our neighborhood isn't one of them. Much thanks, Matt Jackson." And I would like to just put in, I love the buildings that you have put on the other side of this property. It's amazing. It's what was in the plan when we first started working with Keesnar with the R&B. And it keeps to what the resident says and why we put our commercial daycare where we did.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
My name is Paul Sorensen. I live at 6657 South, 630 West. I do want to add, I opened up the business with Mrs. Sorensen. I do want to note that she lives on the premises. She is literally a resident there. I have a house over in the other subdivision. I do want to say 13 years ago today, I was in their situation. I was trying to find a place to build, and they said, "Hey, we've got this new general plan, this new master plan," and we jumped through $50,000 worth of hoops stops for the driveway, all kinds of things because the demands didn't want us crashing through. We jumped through hoops. I would like to work with them. If they want to keep the house up front and do something back, the thing that worries me is if a mixed use, if they sold in 4 years from now, could something else happen? Yes. I have no problem with his plans per se. And by the way, I also was asked by Matt Jackson and Bryson Bryan from 190, 194, and 198. They talked to me separately. In fact, I talked to Matt today. Ironically, when we moved in, the person that was the most unhappy with us moving in was the former owner of this Brackley. We ended up becoming very good friends. And if you find any arrows in there, those are my sons. He used to let him shoot there. Is that against zone? No, that wasn't my son. It is a neighborhood. We're friends. We're neighbors. My big concern is, and I'm going to address it right here, and I met, back then it was Lyndon, Jeff, and Sherry, but my biggest concern is an integrity issue that's going on in Murray. We have had the front of our daycare set on fire by vagrants. They closed a homeless place downtown, and now they all walk up and down Winchester Street. I had to spend nights parked in the driveway to keep the vagrants out. We had people camping in the burned out shell of the building while we were waiting for a building permit to come through. We have had a man pass out on Thanksgiving and fall down the stairwell in our property. Okay? In front of this very property and the house next to it a couple years ago, I had to sit with a man who was totally passed out and accosting people waiting for the police to come because he was either high or intoxicated or under some influence. The integrity of Murray is being attacked by outside forces that are beyond our control. A shooting at the Fashion Place Mall by people from 2 counties up there. We really need to make sure that we maintain the integrity of these residential neighbor businesses because Murray is a we haven't fallen into what's going on in Midvale or in South Salt Lake. We've maintained a high level of respect. So all I am saying is I'm scared about the mixed use turning into something else. Let's work with him to get him in to fit in a neighborhood business. It is a neighborhood. And I will say, and make sure we follow up and jump through the hoops. And the reason why is, I know of other businesses, and like I said, I was the very first one. They're told they have to do things, and then they don't always do them. Okay, I thought I was given 5. I'm sorry. But I was representing the other people. Matt Jackson called me, and so I want to work it out like the other ones. By the way, I am in favor of fizzy drinks myself, as you can tell. I'm not CrossFit, but there is a core thing that needs to be attacked. We're fighting like crazy to keep that. And if all of a sudden there's an industrial place that some of these vagrants can go to and hide out and be in, we need to really protect Murray and follow the master plan.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hello. My name is Orlando Perez. I'm actually a parent from the daycare, and I've actually had some problems in the past. I've had my vehicles broken into, I've had my windows bashed from vagrancies, and I've also am kind of concerned if the vagrant problem is going to increase due to scrap metal, since that's kind of valuable. So I'm just concerned about that issue, especially, and as well as the fencing and the buffers. If somebody decides to drive through, are they going to go through the whole fence area and out the buffers and into the daycare? So I don't want my kid to get hurt. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope.
Hi there, I'm Kim Chatterton. I represent the seller, Jeff, for the property. I'm with Coldwell Banker. And I just have 2 quick questions more than anything. We got this great report. By the way, Jared has been awesome. So thank you for his time and efforts.
Hey, Jared.
I really appreciate that. This little map thing I'm looking at that was in our packet that we got, am I to understand, is this area, maybe you've got that one up, that's behind, is this already zone mixed use? I do have a question about that, or what?
It's not zone mixed use, it's, I'm going the wrong direction. Well,
I was just kind of looking at I just wanted to confirm.
It's not zone mixed use, it's actually zone MG, manufacturing general right.
Okay, sorry. And my other question is, do you know what the proposed suggestion would be? Is that how you approach that study? I wondered that. And then also maybe, we were under the understanding it was, maybe you could clarify what your business is or isn't. That might be helpful, I think.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if is there a suggestion on that study, maybe. That was our other question. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Good? Okay, we will close the public comment at this point in time. And we'll actually have the applicant come back up and, yeah, this is a great time. And if you can just clarify what you would be doing with your business.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be great. Thanks. I'm glad people's comments, because this is what I wanted. I wanted more people, actually, if they opposed it. So I could care less what the use is or has to be declared just to get my business in there. We don't manufacture things, we buy things, and we install them other places. So it's a storage place that we load materials and go to job sites.
Do you receive deliveries?
We do. And I would say you get 5 a week.
And what size vehicle does your deliveries? Are we talking?
Just a box van.
Just box.
And then my work vehicles are pickup trucks and vans.
And you plan on storing how many work vehicles on site?
Well, that's the thing. I also want to, the property didn't get included, which I can't really say much.
Yeah.
But I want the people to know what my intentions are. Is I don't want vagrants. I don't want people sticking around. I don't want my name on the front of the building saying Casey Heating and Air Conditioning. It's just a place for my business, because I'm going to have a house in the front with a family. And if it's that sketchy of a neighborhood, you know, I want it to be better. So I don't want to induce anything like that. I'll need to build some sort of a structure similar to the dance studio or something that's to the side to park my vehicles inside, so everything's enclosed, because I don't want theft. I don't want tools stolen. I don't want to show up to problems. I don't want to be more of a problem. But we load, we get there early, we leave, and there's nobody really there during the day except for a delivery.
Okay. How many employees do you have currently?
16.
16. Okay. Any additional questions? Nope. All right. Thank you. Okay. Guess we'll bring it back up here.
I think the challenge with this is just what was brought up earlier. It's not necessarily, it's not about this application. It's not about this use. It's not about the business. It actually sounds like a great business. Sounds very responsible. Sounds like one that is needed. Obviously been in Murray for a long time. The challenge is once you change that zone, you really, as a city, we lose control over, what can be in there other than what's in the mixed use. You can't go back to a residential neighborhood, really. And that's the concern, is you may look at it and say, I decide I don't want someone to live in that front house, so the neighborhood's bad. I'm not going to do that, my business here anymore. Then you could put in a mixed use development with commercial on the bottom and residential on the top, like you're seeing going around over here by 53rd. And that's the concern, is I just don't think that in that property the mixed use fits. But as Jared said, we got to see the study. You can see that the future land use does call for some mixed use closer to 215. So I personally love the residential neighborhood business zoning, and I'm very hesitant to recommend any changes on it. I would like to see if there's any other possibilities for you to be able to acquire that property and still make your business work, but sounds like Jared says no. You've explored all the opportunities. He can do a major home occupation and.
Yeah, exactly. No, we've kind of gone through all of those possibilities. We talked about Kevin and I talked about the possibility of asking for a text amendment, proposing a text amendment to the R&B zone as opposed to trying to change the zoning. My advice to him was that we were not likely to support a change that would allow contract construction in the residential neighborhood business. It just doesn't fit. So this was kind of the avenue that made the most sense for him, and although we advised against that, he felt like he wanted to take a shot. So,
no, that's fine.
I was going to take the opportunity to, you kind of already addressed it. Mrs. Chatterley mentioned the study. We don't go into that with any preconceived notions. Actually, we just finished doing one for the Central Station area. We go into it and let the consultants kind of guide that from the get-go.
And it was exactly the opposite of what we thought we were going to
It was
get
completely
when all was said and
180
done.
degrees.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jared.
Yep.
I just want to echo what has been stated tonight. If there were a way we could permit this building, or permit this business in the way it has been presented tonight, I have no problem at all with this being there. It is a very good fit. It sounds great. However, the zone that allows this activity is a broad zone, and I know, intentions. I'll give you a wonderful scenario. Let's say you put your business here, and we approve this, council approves it. your business does awesome, and you outgrow the site. You've got an asset there that you need to maximize, and you move on, and you're going to maximize that asset and market it for all the many uses that it can be used. You'd be a fool not to. There's a lot of situations that can come up after tonight, and everything that is allowed within that zone is a possibility. And even though intentions in that may vary, I, for one, am not comfortable in taking that big a step at this time, especially with the study for the area pending.
But I also think it's important to note, as you noted as the applicant and also Jared at the beginning, that, we're just a recommending body. The city council ultimately makes that decision. Sometimes they go with what we recommend, sometimes they go against it. They're ultimately the ones that are elected to make those decisions. So,
I want to chime in. I don't think I'm going to say this as eloquently as Scott and Phil always do, but I appreciate your business. I appreciate you, and I feel this is a difficult situation because I would like you to stay in Murray, and I would like you to stay at this location if possible. But I feel hesitant to support a land use or zone change for all the reasons stated, and it's unfortunate also because what if we take the time and the money to go through the study and we come up with results suggesting you should have been there? That would be horrible. But I'd like us to take the time to research the area and use the area appropriately.
And I will say this about the R&B zone. It's my favorite zone that we have.
Thank you.
As a transition zone between semi-commercial and neighborhoods, it's very, very important here in Murray. We've got a lot of arterials that run through the city, and they back onto established neighborhoods. And this has proven to be a very, very effective way of managing that transition from commercial and higher density zones to the neighborhood zone behind it. And I know in this case here, the freeway is behind it in that. However, this is one small slice. This entire street on the south side, in addition to this north side here, is also R&B presently. And I just don't think it's appropriate to cherry pick a property in the zone right now.
What we need is the dentist that tried to zone change, We need them to move over here.
Yeah, I will let you. Go ahead.
So it was brought up that potentially if I sold or went out of business or this land would be zoned MU. Is there any way I can legally tie it to say if my business goes out of business or I don't own the property anymore, it goes back to the R&B and stays the same? Because I have no intention to change it.
Yeah.
Or the back parcel be only considered and not the front, so it's landlocked. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, they're just, it is what it is. Yeah.
It's really hard to do a down zone.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's
Nobody feels worse
Explore
about
every
this
option,
than me,
yeah.
trust me. I've been right in your shoes.
We've closed the public comment portion, so I won't, yeah. All right, so I either need a motion or more debate.
Well, I'll make a motion that we forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map designation of the property located at 160 West Winchester Street from residential business to mixed use.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map designation of the property located at 160 West Winchester Street from residential business to mixed use. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Mr. Nay.
Yes. Okay, I need a motion on the zoning map designation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we forward, the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of denial to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 160 West Winchester Street from RNB, Residential Neighborhood Business, to MU mixed use.
A motion by Mr. Markham to forward a recommendation of denial to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 160 West Winchester Street from RNB residential neighborhood business to MU mixed use. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Mr. Hacker. Call for vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, and that motion carries as well. That is it for the formal agenda this evening. I will remind everybody here that this will go to the City Council. The City Council will still hear this. I encourage you to show up and give your opinion one way or another and make it clear to everybody. Oh, I lied. We do have one more agenda.
And with that, just really, work with the, the staff and we hope we can find a solution.
Yeah, find a place, please.
Sometimes we look at these and we're like, oh, I don't want that business there. I wish it could work. There's just too many unknowns about the mixed use.
On both ends. I'd love to see the property owner be able to sell his property.
Absolutely.
And it would be wonderful to keep you in Murray. So
it's too many.
Let's try and work something out, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Item number 13 this evening is election of chair and vice chair for calendar year 2019.
Mr. Chairman.
This is quick.
I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Markham, let's hear that motion.
Do I need to make one motion for chair and then another motion for vice chair? Or can we have them run as a
single ticket?
Happy
Single ticket.
Yeah.
Okay, make your single ticket nomination.
Okay. I would like to nominate Ned Hacker as chairman for the coming year and Sue Wilson as vice chair for the coming year.
Okay. Do I need to entertain additional motions or just go with that?
Well, I mean, is Ned gonna?
Yeah, do they accept the?
Ned got really pale.
I've
traveling a lot, Scott.
I told you. I mean, hey, I'm happy. I'm always happy to do it. I just may miss every other meeting.
I'm retired now.
So
good for you.
I have a motion by Mr. Markham to appoint Mr. Hacker as chair and Ms. Wilson as vice chair for calendar year 2019. Do I have a second?
I second that.
I have a second by Ms. Milkevich. Call for vote.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Do I get to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll vote yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury.
Awesome.
well, they voted yes, so I'm gonna say yes. Good job. You guys will be awesome.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Awesome.
Motion carries.
So we start
great.
in June?
Starts next meeting.
Scott and I are going to start we're going to file our campaign papers
Motion
for
to
next year.
adjourn.
Well, does it, anything from?
Yeah.
Oh, is there anything
Staff?
additional from staff?
We need a change in the bylaws for co-chairs.
I mentioned that central station area plan. We're putting it on your agenda for consideration next time, February 7th. Please
What? Can you
enjoy.
repeat that? I'm sorry.
The Murray Central Station area, small area plan, the MCSSAP is what we call it.
Nice.
The MaxApp. Sometimes the McSassy pants, honestly. Is what we call it. That plan, that draft plan will be on your agendas for consideration next time, February 7th. You have the latest copies of the draft, but would you like new copies? Have any of you lost and or discarded your previous copies? I can send out more, either electronically or bring paper copies to you, whatever you'd like. So
Electronically would be nice. I think
email it out
I'm
again.
pretty sure I have mine in my file, but I just
I'm going to email it out just in case. And if you have any questions at all, please, I encourage you to call me during the interim, and we'll get you some answers. Okay?
What time do you usually leave for the day?
It depends. It varies wildly.
Oh.
Sometime between 5:15 and
8:45.
So if we call you around 5:15-ish with hours worth of questions,
Yeah,
you'll
and
be.
when I email this out, I'll send you my cell phone, and you can text me in the middle of the night. I have nothing better to do. Trust me. So.
Welcome to my world.
Hey, motion to adjourn, right?
Jim has-
Motion.
second.
Second. All right, adjourn.
Wait, Scott, we have one.
It's got deals going on. Sorry.
Jim.
The land use ordinance, we'll start those discussions. You'll receive a draft in your next packet. I'm sorry for the sign code. It's been a long time coming. So we'll start.
Love the sign code.
That's good
We'll
to
go
know.
through that text. We'll, at the end of next meeting, we'll spend the time we need to go through the draft text.
Big agenda.
I don't think so.
No, there
Yes.
won't be a big
Not
agenda.
anything like this.
18 items per meeting from now on.
I think we have 4 items and then the 2 we just discussed on top of it.
It's scary for me, but it's exciting for me.
And there won't be any difficult items during the course of the year either.
Adjourned.